Now today what we're going to be doing is something very simple, very easy to do, and it's all about working with masking fluid and layering masking fluid. So really working sort of a negative painting way. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's get the brushes wet and make a start. Now the first thing you need to do is get an outline drawing onto the paper. I've provided that one for you. So use whatever method you would normally use, be it graphite back paper, freehand drawing if you want to do it that way around, or even the grid system as well. Once you've got the outline on, then we're going to switch to the masking fluid. Now this one is PBO drawing gum. This is a latex free one, so it's not a stinky smelly one. And I like to use this one because I find it comes off the paper a little bit easier as well. And also, as I mentioned, it doesn't smell, which is quite handy. I'm using, actually, believe it or not, a milk bottle lid, just one of the plastic milk bottle lids. I do have a habit of saving those as well. Using an old size 00 brush, and these are the ones that's destined for the bin, and I save those for masking fluid and other kind of techniques as well. And you also grab a cocktail stick as well and put that to one side. I'll show you in a minute what to do with that. Now whilst that masking fluid is still wet, pull a few lines in towards the kingfisher as well. But do this in the direction that the feathers grow. We've got to do this fairly quick though, because masking fluid does dry very, very quickly indeed. So only do a small area at a time like I've done here. The kind of width you want to do with the masking fluid depends on, how you want to paint it, to be honest with you. Mine is probably about 1 centimetre wide, so maybe something like no more than 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, something like that will do. Then work your way all the way around the kingfisher head. See, normally when I paint any of my wildlife paintings, as you know, and I use masking fluid, I normally work on the inside of the image, not the outside. So this is more, as I mentioned, more of a negative way of painting with watercolours. Then you can wash your brush out, another milk bottle lid, I know, surprise, surprise, just a little bit of water and I use my pipette and to give it a rinse out. Once you've done that, it should be nice and clean and you can use that again next time around. Now the normal masking fluid, the latex one, you find can ruin those brushes, so bear that in mind. Now I've missed a little bit, as you can see. So I'm going to put a small amount of masking fluid on the bottom of the branch, just underneath the branch. Because when I paint that branch, I don't really want to get any paint onto the background. I know that some people like to have a splatter effect, don't they, around the background. But to me, not really. It's not my kind of style. Phthalo blue. This is a really intense, bright blue. And I want this more of a watery consistency. Always make more than you think you'll need. Because believe you me, you may run out. I've done it so many times and you've got to remix that colour again. Okay, I'll put a bit more water into my other well, and this is going to be alizarin crimson. Okay, lovely, lovely colour. Give it a quick test on some scrap watercolour paper. Just make sure you got the sort of consistency right. You don't want it too rich. Then using a 1/2 inch mop brush, start to wet the kingfisher and do this a couple of times at least. I'm going to use a size 8 brush so I can cut into those smaller sections around the kingfisher. Yeah, Rosemary & Co. Spotter Red Dot Series size 8. It's quite nice. Then picking up the phthalo blue, start to apply it to the paper. Now this paint will not be thickening. We're going to keep it to water consistency within our mixing wells. Even when we've got the drying time and we come back to the painting, then you need to make sure it's still watery because it will dry a little bit, it will thicken up. Using the alizarin crimson, gently mix those colours together. So probably about halfway down, something like that. Gently blending as you go along. Now just remember, don't go back to the top of the kingfisher once you've got the paint on, because you might find it started to dry and then you'll leave blemishes on the paper. Now don't dry it with a hairdryer. No, don't. Once it's bone dry, and I mean bone dry, then you can start to use a little bit more masking fluid and we can make a start and put some little images all over this kingfisher. But not too many to begin with, okay? We need to work in layers, remember. So I'm going to put dragonflies, and it's going to be a simple sort of outline for a dragonfly. And all it's going to be is like an elongated figure of 8. That's all it is, lot. So figure of 8 like that. You can stretch it out, dot for the head, and then a tapered body at the back for the thorax and the tail. There we go. And the same again all the way around. I'm going to vary the size of these. I'm going to vary the angle of these. And I'm also going to be adding other items in there as well. And you can do whatever you want to do at this stage. Work your way all over the paper. Now I don't want to add all these dragonflies right all the way to the bottom. I'm going to probably stop them about halfway-ish, something around there, because I want to add some other items down the bottom of the kingfisher anyway. I mean, for example, in this case, what I'm doing is working on some, well, basic twigs, branches, that sort of thing, really. And when you're painting branches, especially with masking fluid as well, I know it's a bit tricky with masking fluid, is that do them in a tapered way. Think about the way that the tree grows. So it grows from the ground up, obviously. Duh. Of course it does. But it grows from the ground up, so therefore it's going to be thicker at the ground, and then tapers and gets thinner as it comes towards the top. Then we can add a few flowers here and there as well, just for an extra effect. And then let it dry again. Now masking fluid doesn't take long to dry. Not normally, 5-10 minutes normally. Test it with your finger, make sure it's nice and bone dry first. Then re-wet again over the top of the kingfisher. You probably only need to do this maybe once. Allow the water to soak into that paper, just a touch, okay? Leave it for half a minute or something like that. Let it soak in. Now my board is on the slight angle here, so that means everything runs downhill. Okay, so it's only very slight, about 15 degrees, something like that as a guesstimate. So you have to bear that in mind when you're working with something like this. Because the paint will run down, that will then mean it will gather on the edge of the masking fluid down below. And you see where some of the water tends to pool up, or the colour tends to pool up, especially at the base of the tail here. So it will kind of collect in on the top of that masking fluid there. And then in little areas where I've put the masking fluid on the paper. So just remember that when you're working with it. You might want to take some of that off with a semi-dry brush, or you might want to leave it on for more effect. Well, why not? And then you've got to let it dry again. There's a lot of drying time going on here. No hair dry, remember. Then we'll put another layer over the top of this as well. Now you can overlap some of these images as well if you want to, because if you overlap them, you could give them all sorts of different dimensions as well. And the good thing about working over the top of the colour that we just put another layer of on the paper, nice and dry remember, is that this will give us a different colour for the dragonfly, a different tonal value, a different shade of blue if you wish. And that's what we're trying to work on. And when it's all done, it could give us quite a lot of depth to the painting. And the more layers that you add, the more depth you'll get to that painting. So you might want to start something like this with just a few here and there, not quite as many as I started kind of with the first layer. And then you could have more subsequent layers over the top of that. So instead of 3 or 4 layers, you can have maybe, 10 layers. I know, they can really make all these layers look very deep into that kingfisher. Again, test the masking fluid again, make sure it's nice and dry, and then add yet another layer of this watery blue and the watery red over the top. But take your time when you do this. There's no hurry, there's no rush. And this time I've not wetted the paper. You probably noticed that. And because I've not wetted the paper, I know, it could dry really, really quick. And so if you want to speed up your drying time, don't wet that paper first of all. Because when you wet the paper, which I like to do anyway normally, you find it will dilute the paint that goes on the paper. So the watery blue and the watery red that we've got here will get diluted down to an even thinner consistency and it'll weaken that colour. So it depends how rich you want those colours to be. So if you go straight onto dry paper, start from the top and try to maintain a run line of paint as you work your way down. Then gently blend them together just as we've done before, more than once of course. I do like the sort of purple feel in the middle as well, it's quite nice that. Okay, everything's nice and dry again. Let's get some more masking fluid and do the same thing again, okay? I'm going to put a few dots here and there, minuscule little dragonflies. If you want flies in there, or birds flying around in the distance, birds of prey, wow, wouldn't that be brilliant? So the list is endless what you can do here. So I'm just going to add a few little dots here and there. They could be anything from flowers to, motes in the air. Could be a variety of things, couldn't it? Really could. You can get really creative with this as well. Add a few more twigs and sticks here and there. So it's going to give another sort of layer, another sort of depth towards this painting when it's all dry. Okay, I'm going to flick this as well, I like to splatter paint very often within my main paintings, especially for texture. And you can splatter the masking fluid, just very carefully, obviously. Using your finger and the tip of the brush, splatter it away, try and get little tiny dots here and there. And this way they're not too even, they're quite random, aren't they? And that's what I want on the paper. Don't add too many though, you don't want to completely cover up everything. And then wait for it to dry. And it shouldn't take too long because we didn't wet the background first. And then we're going to go in with a final layer of colour. Still the same consistency, still the same watery paints that we've had right at the very beginning. Yes, I've had to add a little bit more water into them because obviously they start to dry whilst we're waiting for the painting to dry. But try and maintain that watery consistency all the time, okay? And also I did mix up a little bit more paint while the Kingfisher was drying. I know, because I was getting quite low on it. What did I say to you at the beginning? Yeah, make sure you mix more than you think you'll need, eh? I still didn't mix quite enough. Oh, well, never mind. Then adding this final red down to the branch, working way down this Kingfisher. That's lovely and rich, isn't it? And it depends on how dark you want to go with this as well. Then let it dry. Then using a very dry finger, so dry probably a couple of fingers, something like that, on some kitchen roll, then start to remove that masking fluid. Very carefully. Now this PBO drawing gum, as I mentioned, comes off really easily. The only thing is it's also quite messy as well. So it gets absolutely everywhere. So just remember that if you're using PBO. They've got to brush it all off. Now look at that. Isn't that very effective? It is, isn't it? And you can see the different layers that were put on there as well. The way these layers of masking fluid have worked really well together. Here we go. Give it a quick signature. Now let me guide you to another silhouette watercolour painting of a bird on a teasel, and this time it's a full video tutorial for you to watch and also to have a go at. And you find this in the top right hand corner of the screen. I'll see you there.